I was wiping the kitchen counter when the envelope slid through the mail slot and landed at my feet. White, heavy paper. Daniel's handwriting on the front. My heart lifted before I even opened it. My son rarely wrote anymore. Text messages had replaced our letters long ago. Inside was a gold-trimmed card. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington invite you to a private family dinner this Saturday to celebrate the upcoming anniversary of Daniel and Lydia Delgado. I stared at the names, reading them twice. The Harringtons. Lydia's parents. The family I'd never met. For a long moment I stood still, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in my small kitchen. It had been almost a year since Daniel's wedding, and though we'd spoken often on the phone, Lydia had kept her distance. Every time I offered to visit, she found a reason to postpone. And now, out of nowhere, an invitation. I should have been happy. Instead, my stomach knotted. Something about the formal tone felt less like an invitation and more like a test. Still, I smiled. "All right," I whispered. "Let's meet the famous Harringtons." That whole week I worked extra hours at the bakery. I wanted to bring a small gift, maybe a basket of fresh pastries. Lydia once said her parents liked refined desserts. Whatever that meant. By Friday evening, I laid out my best clothes on the bed, a light blue dress I'd bought years ago for church gatherings, a cream cardigan, and sensible shoes. Nothing fancy, but clean and pressed. I added my mother's small pearl earrings. They made me feel brave. Saturday came grey and cold. The taxi ride to the Harringtons' neighborhood felt like traveling into another world. Wide streets, trimmed hedges, gates tall enough to guard secrets. When we stopped in front of a massive white house, I took a deep breath and reminded myself, "Smile, Maria. Be yourself." The door opened before I could ring the bell. A tall woman with perfectly arranged hair looked me over from head to toe. "You must be Daniel's mother," she said. "I'm Evelyn Harrington." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yes," I said, offering my hand. "It's so lovely to finally meet you." She hesitated before shaking it, as if contact might smudge her manicure. "Come in." Inside smelled of expensive candles and polished wood. Family portraits lined the hallway, Lydia in gowns, Robert Harrington in crisp suits, Evelyn beside them like a queen. I followed her to a living room that looked like a magazine photo, white couches, glass tables, not a speck of dust in sight. "Robert, she's here," Evelyn called. A man appeared from the adjoining study. "Ah, Mrs. Delgado," he said, voice smooth but distant. "Please, sit." I perched on the edge of the couch. "Thank you for inviting me. Daniel speaks so highly of you both." "Does he?" Robert said, pouring himself a drink. "He's doing well in the firm. We've given him opportunities he might not have found elsewhere." "I'm very grateful," I replied. "He's always been hardworking." Evelyn gave a small, tight smile. "He takes after you, I'm sure." I wanted to believe it was a compliment, but something in her tone made it sound like an accusation. Dinner was served in a room so large it made me nervous to speak. Lydia sat beside Daniel, her diamond bracelet catching the light. She kissed me on the cheek, polite, quick, and turned back to her mother before I could say much. The first course came, tiny portions arranged on enormous plates. I wasn't sure whether to eat or admire. Robert poured wine, offering me a glass. "Oh, no thank you," I said. "I don't drink." He raised an eyebrow. "Not even for a special occasion?" "I'm afraid not." Evelyn chuckled softly. "How disciplined." The conversation turned to travel, business, art, things I had little to say about. When I tried to tell a story about Daniel fixing our old car as a teenager, Lydia interrupted, laughing too loudly. "Mom, you should have seen his old place," she said. "So rustic. Daniel used to call it homey, didn't you, darling?" Daniel smiled awkwardly. "Yes, homey." Evelyn leaned closer to her daughter. "How charming." I laughed with them, pretending not to notice the sting in their words. I could feel Daniel's eyes on me, worried, but I kept smiling. "Don't embarrass him," I told myself. "You're just a guest." After dessert, Evelyn led me into the living room again. "Would you like coffee?" she asked. "Yes, please." She handed me a delicate cup and sat across from me. You must be proud of your son. More than anything. You raised him alone, didn't you? Yes, I said softly. After my husband passed. That must have been difficult, she said. Still, he's managed to rise above his background. I blinked. I beg your pardon? Oh, I only mean it as a compliment, she said quickly. Daniel's done well for himself. I smiled gently. He always aimed high. His father used to say that a man who forgets where he comes from will lose himself. Evelyn looked away, pretending not to hear. When I left later that night, the air outside felt colder than before. Daniel walked me to the gate. I'm sorry if Mom and Dad seemed. Don't worry, I interrupted. They're lovely people. He hesitated. They can be a bit much. I know, sweetheart. I touched his cheek. Just be kind. That's all that matters. He hugged me, but I felt a wall between us, something unspoken that hadn't been there before. As the taxi drove away, I looked back at the glowing mansion. Inside, I could see silhouettes moving behind the curtains. Laughter drifted faintly into the night. For a moment, I thought I heard my name, soft, mocking, but maybe it was just the wind. I turned my face toward the dark window, and for the first time that evening, I let my smile fade. Something inside me whispered, that wasn't a dinner. That was a warning. And I promised myself quietly, next time I see them, I'll be ready.